Langworthy. Mr. Neguse?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Chairman Duncan and Ranking Member Pallone, for your testimony and for being here today. Mr. Duncan, I don't want to belabor the point here, but I listened with great interest to your primer on the constitutional order of our country and the principles of limited government as you see it, and your perceptions about supposed overreach by the federal government in this case that apparently was the impetus for the Hands Off Our Home Appliances Act. I think House Republicans at least were wise enough to keep the rest of their bills, the Refrigerator Freedom Act and the like, from the floor this week. But nonetheless, I listened to that primer with great interest. Some of the words you used, just in response to my colleague from New York's questions, were too much government, freedom to choose, which of course is, ironic given the position of House Republicans in undermining the right, the freedom to make one's own health reproductive decisions. But I guess what I really would like for you to help expound to me is where you draw the line when it comes to what you describe as too much government. You said there's too much government in selecting one's toaster, I guess, or one's refrigerator, apparently, or one's washer and dryer. You went through this litany of examples. Where do you draw the line?
Where do I draw the line on what?
Yeah, how do you see, you take issue with the federal government's role, in this case, with respect to the bill that you all have proposed. Where do you draw the line as to how much government is too much government?
Well, there's 17 enumerated powers in the United States Constitution, and I think government has well exceeded that. I think a return to a smaller, limited federal government is better.
Okay.
That's how our founders envisioned this.
That's helpful. That's what I was hoping you would say. You believe there's too much government in appliances, or the selection thereof. You think there's too much government in baseball?
I don't think government has a role in baseball.
You don't think government has a role in baseball? That's fascinating. Are you familiar with the Competition in Professional Baseball Act?
Well, there's some antitrust laws.
No, I didn't ask you that. I asked if you're familiar with that bill. I mean, I hope you'd be familiar with it because it's your bill.
I am, yeah.
Right? Yeah. You authored the Competition in Professional Baseball Act. That bill does what? It amends the Clayton Act to ultimately eliminate one of the antitrust exemptions that exists for professional baseball. You're familiar with the Clayton Act, yes?
I am.
And the Clayton Act is designed to do what? Protect consumers, is that right? Is the Clayton Act part of the 17 enumerated powers of the federal government under the Constitution as you see it, that you hold so true and fast to?
Probably.
Probably? Okay, so looks like we found an exception. Maybe we can go down the list of some others. You see my point, Mr. Duncan.
I said it's too much government.
Oh, yeah, I understand, but apparently too much government in the case of the bill that you proposed, but not too much government in the case of professional baseball, where apparently you've introduced a bill, or at least you introduced a bill.
Trying to roll back
Hold on,
some of
Mr.
government.
Duncan, I'll finish
Just
my
like this
statement,
is
and
trying.
I'll give you an opportunity to respond, in which you introduced a bill in the last Congress to give the FTC more powers so that it could regulate professional baseball. So you could imagine, I think, my surprise, and I suspect for those who are watching, their surprise to hear you defend liberty for refrigerators, but then demand that the federal government intervene in the regulation of professional baseball. I find that a bit disconnected from the philosophy that you've articulated. But I'm happy to...
Well, there's already antitrust laws out there that baseball has to operate under. And trying to roll back some of that is lessening government's involvement.
Yeah, again, that's not the nature of your bill. The bill provides for an amendment of
the laws already exist.
Let me finish my statement here. The Clayton Act, which as you know is over 100 years old, does not include baseball, and the courts, going back a generation, have ruled that professional baseball is not subject to the antitrust laws of the United States of America. You, sir, have introduced a bill to mandate that professional baseball be subject to the antitrust laws of the United States and to give the Federal Trade Commission the powers to regulate it thereof. You shouldn't be embarrassed by it. That's your position.
I'm
So
not,
my
because there
point,
were antitrust violations
And so the antitrust laws, I didn't write.
I hear you.
The antitrust laws were on the books.
And apparently you believe
And
that
baseball was
it's in
given
the
an exemption.
interest of the American public for the federal government to have a role to protecting consumers, which you've spent the better part of the last half hour attacking that very view.
Antitrust laws fall
So-
under commerce, which the federal government enumerated powers to
Sure,
regulate.
sure. Well, you have a broader view of the Commerce Clause than, certainly than apparently the framers that you were describing previously. But I don't, to the extent that you care to jump in, Ranking Member Pallone, about the regulation of professional baseball, you're welcome to, but.
Talk about baseball, but I just think, look, this kind of goes back to what Congresswoman Scanlon said, right? The public assumes that the government has a role in protecting consumers, right? Whether it's baseball, it's food safety, it's appliances, whatever. And so I think that to suggest that there's some kind of ideological view that says that the government shouldn't play that role is not the case. That's what the public assumes. And they'd be shocked to hear, I think, some of the statements here today suggesting that, we just have this market economy where anything goes and the federal government shouldn't step in and regulate things. That's not what I hear from my constituents. They want us to regulate problems if there's, I don't know what there is, but let's assume there's some kind of shady dealings in baseball. They want to make sure that when they go to the game, there's fair play. Same thing with food safety, same thing with appliances. They rely on us to help them as consumers, and to suggest that that somehow is not what the framers intended, I don't agree.
Couldn't say better than the ranking member, and couldn't agree with you more. I yield back, Mr. Chair.